We have two major stories today, both interrelated, and it's about the lies of the government media complex and the vicious, pedantic academics who have distorted reality. For example, Obama at the National Prayer Breakfast attacked Christianity in order to smear Christianity, in order to cover up the terrible crimes being committed by ISIS. And as I've reminded you this week on the Savage Nation, the Islamic State is, it has an acronym called ISIS, because it's the Islamic State. And it's not crisis. It's not the Christian state that is burying people alive, raping women, forcibly converting them. It is not the Jewish state that is committing atrocities and genocide, so it's not ISIS. It is not the Buddhist state that is committing atrocities, and that's why it's not ISIS. Nor is it the Hindu state that is committing atrocities the world has not seen since Genghis Khan and Adolf Hitler. No, it's ISIS because it is in the name of Islam that it's being done. Why a president of a predominantly Christian nation would get up and smear Christianity is not difficult to understand when you've studied this pathological liar, as I have for these many years. He is not Neville Chamberlain. He's something far worse. And we'll play that soundbite for you for a moment. But there's another major story, and I've warned you about beware the government media complex since 1998. I've warned you that they're all liars. I've warned you over and over again. Well, now we have the proof we've been looking for, which we haven't seen since Dan Rather lied about George Bush and was thrown off the air, and that is now the Brian Williams story. Brian Williams, as you know, is a marginal pancake makeup guy on NBC. Brian Williams had the nerve to lie on the David Letterman show a number of years ago that he was shot down in a helicopter during the Iraq War in he told the story in 2013, saying he was shot down in 2003. Well, he wasn't shot down. He wasn't on the helicopter. The actual soldiers and airmen who were on the helicopter said he's full of crap. He came an hour later, and then he apologized for that. You say, well, what's the big deal? The big deal is it all goes to Michael Savage's allegation that the government media complex is one gigantic construct and one lie. And I want to play for you now the leader of a predominantly Christian nation smearing Christianity in clip number 1.
And lest we get on our high horse and think this is unique to some other place, remember that during the Crusades and the Inquisition, people committed terrible deeds in the name of Christ. In our home country. Slavery and Jim Crow all too often was justified in the name of Christ.
I mean, I rest my case. If you don't recognize that he is a hater of this country, a hater of Christianity, a hater of the religion that built this nation, and frankly, an apologist for the worst scum the world has seen since Adolf Hitler, I don't know what would convince you. If Barack Obama appeared in a fez and put a prayer rug on the lawn of the White House and prayed to Mecca, tell me what Brian Williams would say. Oh, that's his choice. That's his religious choice. That's his religious belief. Christiane Amanpour would get on the prayer rug with him, as would most of the people in the media saying that they're now multiculturalists. This country has been taken over. This country is being driven to obscurity. And the only thing that can stop this downfall is an impeachment hearing immediately. Not just for this. I've been telling you for weeks now that individually none of the acts Obama has committed rises to the level of an impeachable offense. I've said that. I know that. That's how clever this man is, and the sorority around him. The sorority that went to Harvard Lua. The sorority that went to NYU Lua to learn how to twist the Lua. The Lua. The law to them is a piece of toilet paper. That's what the Lua is to the girls around Obama. They know how to skin the cat. But if you take the acts he has committed from day one, from the get-go, and collectively put them together, they do as a collective body rise to the levels of crimes and misdemeanors. But why would he attack religion, the religion of Christianity, at a national prayer breakfast? Are you people that stupid that you don't understand finally what I've been trying to say to you from the get-go on this program? You should be agitated. You should be agitated. Because this administration is on record hating Christianity. Political leaders of the left have been waging a war against Christians for a very long time. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo once declared that extreme conservatives have no place in the state of New York. Pope Francis declared that liberation theology, the same doctrine espoused by Obama's pastor, who has now put out the pasture, Jeremiah Wright, can no longer remain in the shadows to which it has been relegated for some years. That's liberation theology. The Pope attacked capitalism over and over again. The United States, I will remind you, is overwhelmingly a Christian nation, whether you like it or not. The editor-in-chief of the Gallup polling organization estimates that about three-quarters, 75, maybe up to 77% of Americans identify with the Christian religion. That's page 53 of Stop the Coming Civil War. Another 17% of Americans profess no religious affiliation. So the percentage of U.S. citizens with a religious practice other than Christianity is very small, likely as low as 5 or 6%. I wrote this on page 53. The president appears to be committed to the destruction of the majority religion of the country over which he presides. That's my final statement. You know, when you see pictures of the war dead at Normandy, tell me what you see over the graves. Do you see the sign of the devil? Do you see the sign of Buddhism, Hinduism, Judaism, Islam? No, you see crosses. 99.9% of them are boys who died were Christian boys. And they were given the last rites if they were still in one piece. And now we have a man who arrives on the scene very late in the history of this great nation of ours, and at a national prayer breakfast chooses to spit on their graves, basically implying that what was done during the Crusades 1,000 years ago is the current legacy of modern Christianity. I could give you a history of the Crusades, and of course tell you that what is known as the Christian Crusades were actually the counter-crusades of Christians taking back land that was stolen by the Muslims. But you wouldn't understand that if you went to an average liberal arts college. All you know is crusades were Christian and they were bad. And terrible atrocities were committed 1,000 years ago during the Crusades. But get your history straight. They were taking back lands that the Muslims had stolen. That's the reality of a crusade. You don't know that because you probably went to Harvard. But the fact of the matter is, that's irrelevant. What's relevant is what's now. Who's committing the atrocities now? Who is raping whole villages? Who is slaughtering soldiers that they capture, shooting them in the back of the head, violating not the Geneva Convention, violating the Human Convention? Who are inhuman? Who are subhuman? Who are the true subhumans on the planet today? Why, they're ISIS, the Islamic State. Not Crisis, not JISIS, not BISIS, not HISIS, but ISIS. And yet we have a man who calls himself president, who gets up at a national prayer breakfast and smears the religion that permitted a marginal, lying character like himself to become president because the good Christians of America felt that they were not good enough to black people. And so many good Christian liberals voted for him out of guilt. Yes, that's right. It was the Christian whites who elected Obama. They're the ones who put him over the finish line. Not the first time alone, but the second time as well. Guilty white liberals. And take a look at how we rewarded them and thanked them. So you say, well, what's the good of knowing this? Why are you talking about it? Well, what do you want me to talk about? A deflated football? I can't talk about deflated footballs when we have a deflated nation. The air is going out of this country so rapidly, I don't know if we can survive. And the only thing that can save us is an immediate impeachment hearing. As I said, not based on this alone, because this is not a crime. This is just a big lie. This is something that Goebbels would have cooked up for Adolf Hitler. Goebbels would have cooked this up for Hitler if he wanted to smear Christianity in his time. Who wrote this speech for Obama? You see, this rhetoric about the Crusades and all religions committed crimes in the name of their religion comes right out of the universities of today. But it gets even worse, by the way. Listen to clip number 3.
The Torah says, love thy neighbor as yourself. In Islam, there's a hadith that states, none of you truly believes until he loves for his brother what he loves for himself.
Really?
The Holy Bible tells us to put on love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. Put on love. Whatever our beliefs, whatever our traditions, we must seek to be instruments of peace and bringing light where there is darkness and sowing love where there is hatred.
Well, that's nice. Did you know about that hadith from Islam? Is that what ISIL is practicing? Love thy neighbor as thyself? Well, you could say raping your neighbor is sort of going along with that, Robert, couldn't you? Maybe I'm misinterpreting the raping of children in Iraq and selling them into sex slavery by ISIS. Perhaps that's what that hadith means, love thy neighbor as thyself. I'm sorry. I apologize. That's right. I didn't see it in the bigger context. That's a sort of love, isn't it? Capturing a village and raping the women, killing their men. That's in the name of love, isn't it? We are witnessing genocide occurring right in front of our eyes. We are witnessing another form of genocide occurring right in front of our eyes. Obama is practicing Christophobia. We hear about Islamophobia on a regular basis, but no, what we really see is Christophobia, which is a phrase I coined about 10 years ago in one of my previous writings. And Obama is the number one Christophobe in the United States of America. For some reason, he has a desperate need to smear this religion that has permitted a marginal, shady character like himself to rise to the highest office in the world. It's hard to believe that he would say a thing like that. I want you to listen to it once again so you know what we're talking about. I don't care who you are. I don't care what your religion is. I want you to ask yourself, not me, and don't even call on this. Is it appropriate for the president of a predominantly Christian nation to smear the religion of the nation for deeds that were committed 1,000 years ago? Listen to clip 1.
I want to offer a special welcome to a good friend, His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, who is a powerful example of what it means to practice compassion and who inspires us to speak up for the freedom and dignity of all human beings. We see faith driving us to do right, but we also see faith being twisted and distorted, used as a wedge, or worse, sometimes used as a weapon. From a school in Pakistan to the streets of Paris, we have seen violence and terror perpetrated by those who profess to stand up for faith. Their
What
faith.
faith? What
Profess to
faith?
stand up for Islam, but in fact are betraying it. We see ISIL, a brutal, vicious death cult that, in the name of religion, carries out unspeakable acts of barbarism,
Islamic
terrorizing
State.
religious minorities like the Yazidis, subjecting women to
And
rape
the Christians
as a weapon of war, and claiming the mantle of religious authority for such actions.
It's beyond comprehension how far he will go to cover up the genocide being committed by ISIL, how far he will go to avoid saying Christians' churches are being burned and they're being driven out of the Holy Land. It is astonishing that every church in the land has not risen up in anger against this man who is acting very much like the Antichrist that we read about in the Bible. Tell me what the Antichrist would be doing if he did arise in this land. Could he be doing any more at this stage of this nation than this one is doing?
And lest we get on our high horse and think this is unique to some other place, remember that during the Crusades and the Inquisition, people committed terrible deeds in the name of Christ. In our home country, slavery and Jim Crow all too often was justified in the name of Christ.
You know, this is the kind of stuff that a radical street preacher in a communist leftist church would be saying. He's repeating the same rhetoric that you would have heard from his preacher, Jeremiah Wright. We warned you about it when he was running the first time. You looked the other way. We said he's not fit to be president. You said we were racist. You said everything under the sun. You didn't believe us. Now it comes home to roost. He takes the crimes committed against humanity by ISIL, the Islamic State, and he tries to cover them up by talking about 1,000 years ago crusades against Muslims, counter crusades really, and what was done during the crusades in the year 1100. Instead of talking about the crimes being committed today, the genocide, the rapes, the murders, the slavery. And then he brings up, he wouldn't be complete without throwing in slavery and Jim Crow. He had to bring up slavery and Jim Crow in order to complete the lessons he learned in the pews of Jeremiah Wright. I mean, this is right out of Jeremiah Wright's church. We warned you that he sat there with Michelle for 20 straight years, taking it in, absorbing it all, and now spitting it back out at us. And, see, it's all coming out of him now. Obama is nakedly revealing his pathologies, or I could put it another way, which is that his pathologies are coming out of him. His pathologies are coming out of him. They're pouring out of him. He feels he can't be elected again, so he's letting his pathologies show. Now we go to Brian Williams, not equivalent to Obama in any way, but in many ways worse than Obama. He's gotten away with the big lie. For so long he started to think he could just say he was a war hero, and people would buy it. So he went on to that other goofball show, David Letterman. I swear to God, I've not watched one show of his in my entire life. Of course I know who he is. I'd be lying if I said otherwise. I never found him of any interest to me whatsoever. He just looked like another ordinary, guy at night who has no talent and has a laugh factory behind him. So Brian Williams goes on Letterman's show in 2013 and repeats in full detail his false tale of having been shot down in a helicopter during the Iraq War. You have to listen to this. Go ahead.
We were in some helicopters. What we didn't know was we were north of the invasion. We were the northernmost Americans in Iraq. We were going to drop some bridge portions across the Euphrates so the 3rd Infantry could cross on them. 2 of our 4 helicopters were hit by ground fire, including the one I was in.
No kidding.
RPG and AK-47.
What altitude were you hit at?
We were only at 100 feet doing 100 forward knots because we had these massive pieces of bridge beneath us on slings.
What happens the minute everybody realizes you've been hit?
We figure out how to land safely, and we did. We landed very quickly and hard, and we put down, and we were stuck. 4 birds in the middle of the desert, and we were north out ahead of the other Americans.
Oh, my.
And
so, Len, as a guy, as a journalist, what do you think? This is a great position to be in, or holy crap, I got to get out of here?
More toward the holy crap. This is great was flying over Iraq. Holy crap started when I realized the now deceased former 4-star general we were traveling with, Wayne Downing.
Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! Dan Rather was fired for less than this. Why NBC would not fire this $10 million a year, 14-carat phony is beyond me, other than it's run by people worse than himself. How could you ever watch anything on NBC now and believe a word that they say? I mean, could you ever before? No. But now you know why you can't. According to people who actually were on the helicopter, crew members of the 159th Aviation Regiment Chinook that was hit by 2 rockets and small arms fire told Stars and Stripes that the NBC liar was nowhere near that aircraft or 2 other Chinooks flying in the formation that was hit with fire. Williams arrived in the area about an hour later on another helicopter. After the other 3 had made an emergency landing, the crew member said, the helicopter that the liar was on took no fire and landed later besides the damaged helicopter due to an impending sandstorm from the Iraqi desert, according to Sergeant First Class Joseph Miller, who was the flight engineer on the aircraft that carried the so-called journalist. He said, no, we never came under direct enemy fire to the aircraft, he said Wednesday. Miller said he never saw any direct fire on the position from Iraqi forces. The claim by Brian Williams of NBC, nothing but CRAP, rankled Sergeant Miller, as well as soldiers aboard the formation of the 159th Aviation Regiment Chinooks that were really flying far ahead and did come under real attack during the real invasion and the real mission. I can go on with this, but it gets even better. Now, this is the best part. At least he's forced to apologize. Obama is above the law, as you know, because absolute power corrupts absolutely. And he never apologizes for his crimes, his misdemeanors, or his insults. But Brian Williams did lie, and he apologized for it last night. But he doesn't really apologize. I want you to listen how he tries to not apologize for lying, but he starts to lie about the lie. Listen carefully to clip 10.
Last week, in an effort to honor and thank a veteran who protected me and so many others after a ground fire.
Stop. Listen to what the liar, Brian Williams, just said. Instead of outright apologizing for having fabricated fake heroism, he said on this broadcast last week, in an effort to honor and thank a veteran who protected me. Can you believe this, that this is how far he would go? Is he that twisted? Are these people that sick that they think that passes for an apology? Listen to the entire version 10.
On this broadcast last week, in an effort to honor and thank a veteran who protected me and so many others after a ground fire incident in the desert during the Iraq War invasion, I made a mistake in recalling the events of 12 years ago. It did not take long to hear from some brave men and women in the air crews who were also in that desert. I want to apologize. I said I was traveling in an aircraft that was hit by RPG fire. I was instead in a following aircraft. We all landed after the ground fire incident and spent 2 harrowing nights in a sandstorm in the Iraq desert. This was a bungled attempt by me to thank one special veteran and by extension our brave military men and women, veterans everywhere, those who have served while I did not. I hope they know they have my greatest respect, and also now my apology.
I'm sorry. Nothing but CRAP. The peacock feathers have fallen off the bird. It is now a naked dodo bird strutting around at Big Rock. He is now on the level of Alec Baldwin, or below that. Because he actually went on, remember Alec Baldwin, remember who he is? You probably forgot who he is. He's no longer around. We heard that he's delivering Chinese food somewhere on the Upper East Side on a bicycle. That's a joke. That would be a step up for what Alec Baldwin once was. At least he'd be doing something useful and honest. But at one point, he actually went on this character, Alec Baldwin's show, and he talked to he told Alec Baldwin, another beacon of the truth in New York City, that he thought he was dying when the helicopter was shot down. Listen to clip 9 from courtesy of Daily Caller.
I guess I do say to myself and to others,
yes, I can.
I've got this.
I
don't know where that unbridled confidence came from. And I've done some ridiculously stupid things under that banner, like being in a helicopter I had no business being in Iraq with rounds coming into the airframe. But
Did you think you would die?
Briefly.
I rest my case. This is one liar talking to another, in my estimation. The only rounds coming into the airframe were not, well, I can't. This is a family show, so we'll let that go. No, there were no rounds coming into the airframe. But I can't tell the joke I would tell if this was a stage show. Nevertheless, we see Brian Williams not apologizing, but lying about it. Even in the apology, he lies. In the apology, he says he lied to thank a veteran. And then he said it was a bungled attempt. And then he said he spent harrowing nights in a sandstorm, like that was the equivalent of flying in the helicopter, again trying to lie about the lie. So what is the point of talking about all of this? It all goes to the government media complex, which is one gigantic propaganda machine. That's just as simple as that. Around the clock, day and night, Goebbels, 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 and the news media being Leni Riefenstahl of our time. The Leni Riefenstahl Brigade with cameras covering up for the Fuhrer. No matter what the Fuhrer does, he's perfect. No matter what the Fuhrer does, he is excellent. No matter what the Fuhrer does, he is just above reproach. No matter what the Fuhrer does, it's for the interests of the American middle class.